RDS basically stands for Relational Database Services. So AWS gives us option wherein we can go and create our own RDS cluster. So as you remember, a cluster is nothing but a combination of multiple machines. Now, also in RDS, you are going to see something known as multiple AC deployments or a fault tolerant network. In short, it simply means that if in case my database goes down, my other instances will still be up and running and they can take the load, or else my traffic, which was pointing to server 1, will now be pointing to server 2 at the same time. So this is what is meant by RDS. Now, before we go to RDS, some basics of database. A database is nothing but a software that can do some amount of data manipulations. Now, if I have a software, I need a server, or I need a machine, or I need a you can call it anything, instance, server, software, wherein my software of database will be running. So this database will be running inside a instance or inside a server. This server generally is a EC2 server. So any server or any virtual machine that you create inside AWS is generally inside your EC2 instance itself. So let's get started with that. By the way, there are multiple ways of working on RDS. There is also a way by which you can go directly to your EC2. And then if you go and launch a machine inside your EC2 instance, here itself, you have certain instance types which are supporting the database. For example, this database automatically comes bundled with SQL Server 2017, SQL Server 2019, 2016, and so on. The same happens with your Ubuntu instances also. The same happens with your Amazon instance also, and the same happens with your Microsoft Windows Server also. So is RDS the only way to launch a database? Actually, no, you have multiple ways. First of them is you can go, so RDS is, yes, indeed the most popular way to launch a SQL database. However, not the only way. You can do it via your EC2 instance itself. Now, anyhow, if you have your EC2 instance and you have your SQL server over here, it's not important that you have to go for the server with AWS themselves. You can go and get your own license and you can download that software inside your EC2 instance or inside your server. And that's the same way how you can work on your RDS. Okay, so this is one of the way. Now you have various other ways. You also have option of light sale over here, where inside light sale again, you can go and create a server and you can go and install your machines inside that. Or inside your light sale, you have concept of database where you can go click on create database. And remember, in this, you only have two options. You have MySQL and you have your PostgreSQL. You can choose any one of them. The pricing is like this, something like this, 15, 30, 60, 100, and $15. And you can go and create a database over here. So this MySQL database also happens to be the database on which we are going to work today. So we'll be creating a RDS instance. So the way to create a MySQL instance or a NoSQL server or a RDS server is you can go inside your EC2, you can do that. You can go inside your light sale, you can do that. Or let's go into the way by which it is supposed to be done. Inside database, you see something known as your RDS or Relational Database Service. Click over there and it will take you to the page of RDS. Remember one thing, right now I'm inside RDS and my region happens to be AP South 1 or Mumbai. So right now I'm inside my Mumbai region. And now there are two ways. First, you can either go and restore your existing database, which you have, which you can restore from S3, or you can go and create a new database. I'll go and create my new database inside MySQL over here. So click on create database. This, by the way, is the new console right now. So you have two options. Either you can go for an easy create and you can just select the database, in which case just select the environment over here. So let's say I want a production environment, or do I want to just test it out, in which case it's a free tier environment, or I can have a dev test environment. So easy create, you don't have to do anything. You just have to go and select the database, select for what purpose you are going to use it. Generally, production will generally have 4 CPU and 32 GB RAM. Give your ID and your password by which you want to go and create the database, and just click on create database, and that's it. So that's an easy way of going and creating a RDS. So That's method one. Now, second method, what we are going to see and what you should pay more attention to is when I go and create a database, and this database, I'll be configuring it as per what I want. So for that, click on the first option, standard create, and then select the database of your choice. Various companies have various databases on which they work, primarily being MySQL. The most which is used is always MySQL, followed by Oracle. Then you have Microsoft SQL, PostgreSQL, and also MariaDB. Amazon Aurora is a database by AWS themselves, which is just having the compatibility same as MySQL. So Amazon Aurora can be compatible with MySQL also. It can be compatible with PostgreSQL also. You are free to choose any one of them. Okay, so right now we'll be choosing MySQL. Now, once I go to MySQL, I have various versions of MySQL database. So these versions, you don't decide on the fly. Rather, what happens is take a scenario in which you have to migrate your database from your on-premise to the cloud or on-premise to AWS. In that case, whatever database is on-premise, the same has to be migrated to AWS. So if it happens to be version 5.6 on-premise, the same you have to select inside your cloud also. Though it's not important, but generally speaking, we try to keep the versions same. Whatever is here in your on-premise, the same is in AWS, or whatever is in cloud provider one, the same we keep in cloud provider two. So right now I'll select a version over here. Let's say I'm selecting 5.6.40, a stable version. Okay, so in this case, you can choose any of the templates again, dev test, free tier, or production. Now, in this case, we'll select the machines ourselves. Rather, we won't go to AWS to ask that what instances we need. Now, over here, I will give a name to the database. Let me call it as my employee database. So this will have the details of the complete employee. Or if I am in ABC company, I'll name it as ABC company. Okay, so you are free to name it anything, but generally speaking, logically, it should make sense. What is the name of that database? Now, next thing, you will have to go and create a username and a password. This username and password is used by you to connect to that particular database. For instance, you have to log in into your Google account or into your Facebook account. You need an ID and a password. Similarly, over here, you will have to go and select a username. This username can be anything. You will have to go and select a password. You can also choose to auto-generate password, in which case AWS will automatically create the password for you. In my case, I'm just selecting a password over here, which I'm putting it as password itself. If everything is good, the next step, here I'll have to tell what type of instance do I need. Now, instance in short means this DB is because it's a database instance. M5 is a general purpose instance. So M5 large is 2 CPU, 8 GB RAM. X large is just double of that, 4 CPU, 16 GB RAM. 2X large is exactly double of that, 8 CPU and 32 GB RAM. You can choose any one of them if you are using a standard class. However, if there is going to be heavy load on your database or on your server, you can choose a memory optimized class, which is a R class or a X class. You can choose any of the instances over here. Also, if you want, you can choose a burstable class, which is nothing but if in case the load is more, AWS will automatically allocate the resources to you on runtime on the fly. So you can choose any one of them. I'm selecting a T3 medium instance. So it has 2 CPU and 4 GB RAM. Please remember this thing that in production, you should ideally not select first a burstable class, or you should ideally select either a standard class or a memory optimized class. The production database needs very heavy RAM or very heavy memory. So please don't go and select a burstable class. For our testing purpose right now, we are selecting this T3 medium over here. Now, next, if I have my database, the database is going to store the information at some place. In our case, this happens to be the storage or the EBS, we call it. You can call it a volume. You can call it a storage. In your laptop, it is known as a hard disk. In your cell phone, it's known as your memory or as your SD card. Similarly, in case of my EC2 instance or the server which I created above, it has to store the information. that can be inside any one of the storage over here. Ideally, please never select a magnetic disk because this one is old and AWS does not guarantee the performance over here. So ideally select either a provisioned IOPS or a general purpose IOPS. So a general purpose SSD, if you take in that case, the IOPS, you don't govern that. That is governed by AWS. It can give you whatever IOPS is available to your instance at that point of time. So IOPS means input output per second, basically how many inputs and how many outputs are going to happen on that particular storage or volume per second. So if in case you say that, no, I need 1000 IOPS, at least I can't trust on the SSD, in that case, you can very well choose a provisioned IOPS and you can take whatever IOPS you want over here. Okay, so let's say you want 1000 of them, click anywhere outside and yes, I have 1000. But remember, if you go for provisioned, the pricing is going to go pretty high because AWS has to guarantee that you can at least support 1000 IOPS. Okay, so if in case the bill or the budget is a constraint, consider using a general purpose. If the performance is constraint and not the budget, consider using a provisioned IOPS. Ideally, never ever go for magnetic storage because that is slow and the performance is not guaranteed. So in my case, I have taken a general purpose SSD and I am just putting 20 GB of storage over here. Now in real time, 20 GB is pretty less. Your data will be, obviously, it will keep on adding up. So you don't have to worry about increasing that because there is something known as auto scaling over here. So if you enable auto scaling, in that case, AWS is automatically going to increase this from 20 to 21, 22, 23, 24. It's going to increase it based on the usage. However, there is a maximum limit on which AWS is going to stop. So from 20, it might go to 100, 200, 300, 900, and 1000. After 1000, it won't be increased. Now, if you say that's a concern for me, I want it more, you are free to increase it whatever you want. So by whatever I mean, it obviously has to be less than 60,384 GB, which is the maximum limit of your volume inside AWS. So minimum is 21. The reason is because your storage itself is started at 20. So the minimum has to be 21 and the maximum is 16,384. So in my case, I'm putting it to 1000 only. Next, availability and durability. In this case, I have my EC2 instance, or I have my database which is working on my server or on my instance or on my EC2 instance. What if that instance itself goes down? In that case, it becomes a problem for me. So in that case, I might want to go and create a standby instance or a backup instance. Simply put, this means that if in case your primary database or your primary server or your primary instance goes down, this instance is going to come up straight away. Anyhow, realistically speaking, both of the instances are working in parallel. If one goes down, second one is automatically running. So now you can consider directly connecting to instance 2. Okay, so in this case, there is zero downtime involved because one of the instances is always working. The only problem with this is that the bill actually goes up. So if you see, my instance is costing me $71 and my multi-AZ instance is also costing me $71. So $142 is for this only. Now, if I go and say that, okay, I don't need a standby instance, in that case, the price is obviously going to go down because I don't have a backup instance. However, in case of a production instance, you should always have a backup instance running or a standby instance running so that if in case there's an issue or if your instance goes down, your second instance automatically comes up. Okay. So in this case, you can go for a multi-AZ deployment, which you should ideally always do. The reason is you have a backup instance always up and running. If in case your primary instance goes down, you still have the option for the second instance. Next, this has to be part of your network anyhow. So you have to go and put it inside a VPC. Now this VPC can be your VPC, or it can be a VPC that you create. It can be a default VPC, anything, but this VPC has to be, or one VPC at least has to be there. Now remember that just like your instances, once you select a database or a RDS inside a VPC, you cannot go and change it. Okay, that's pretty important to remember. Now this has to be inside my subnet group, whatever I have created over here. Now I have to go and give the public access over here, either yes or no. So if you give yes over here, it means anyone from the outer world over internet can make a connection with your instance. If you say no over here, it means it cannot make a connection. Simply put, if you say yes to the public access, a public IP is allocated to your instance. However, if you say no to the public access, a public IP is not given to your instance. Anyhow, even if you put it as a private, or you say that I don't want to put it as the public access, in that case also anyone can make a connection provided it is part of your VPC. So how do they make a connection? In that case, it happens over the private IPs. Okay, so right now I'm putting the public access because we want to see if it actually works in real time and how it is. Okay, next step, you can go and select a security group over here. A security group, simply put, will go and tell that whether what all IPs and what all ports are allowed from this particular database. So I'm selecting VPC. You are free to choose anything of your choice. Okay, then you have some additional configurations, in which case you can go and put the port number. So MySQL by default works on 3306. That's the reason why it is set as this port number. If in case in some scenario you might want to change the port number, in that case you can go and change it over here, and your MySQL service will start to run on this particular port. Now this is important for a reason. We are going to understand it shortly after we try to make a connection with the database. So to make a connection with the database, you need four things. First is the IP address of the machine. Second is the port number, this port number. Third is your username, which we have created over here. Fourth is the password, which you have over here. So these four things, if you have, your program, your application, your software, anything that you have, can make a connection with this particular RDS database. Okay, so in my case, let's make it 3306 here. Now, if you want, you can also go for the IAM database authentication or only the password authentication. IAM database is when you create an IAM user and you go and create the policies for that user. So this is more part about the IAM, which we'll discuss later. Right now, we'll just go and consider the password authentication, which means anyone who has access to my database endpoint. Second is the port number. Third is the username. Fourth is the password. They can go and make a connection with my database. Apart from that, you also have your additional configurations in which you can go and create an initial database. So let's call it as employee something. Then I have my database version. So this is 5.6 and the option group is also 5.6, because above, if you remember, we had selected the version as 5.6 only. Okay. Then apart from that, you can automatically take the backup. If you want, AWS will automatically create the backup for you. Now this backup will be created from, or it will be kept from anywhere from 0 days to 35 days. So I have selected the backup retention period as 7 days. Now, if you have a specific backup window, you can say that, okay, the backup should start at this particular day and it should be there for half an hour. So it's going to start at 0000 hours at UTC, which basically means 5:30 a.m. in the morning. So please pay attention over here. This time is always in UTC and not in IST. That conversion you will have to do in your mind. Okay. So if in case you want it at 12 in the night for India's time, in that case, you will have to go and put it as 18:30 over here. Okay, so 18:30 actually means 0000, and this is going to be for half an hour. Now you can also enable the encryption, in which case it means that whatever data is there stored inside your database will all be encrypted. So this can happen via the key which you have selected over here. You can also enable the enhanced monitoring, in which case the data will be kept or it will be logged for 60-second interval. Apart from this, you have the logs over here, in which case you can save the audit logs, error logs, general logs, and the slow query logs. So basically, any type of logs which you have with the database can be saved inside your CloudWatch. Apart from that, you have the minor version upgrade, in which case if there is any small update or upgrade to be done inside your MySQL database, that can be done automatically if you check this option. Then if you want the maintenance to be done automatically for your database, you can select a window wherein you can say that every Monday at this particular time for half an hour, the maintenance has to be done. In which case you don't have to do that. AWS is automatically doing these things for you. Also, you can enable the deletion protection, in which case it means that this database will not be deleted. So no one can actually go at this time and delete the database. Okay, so the total pricing for this will be around $148, or basically $5 for a day, in which you get your MySQL database. Remember, AWS is managing it. You are not doing anything. You are getting your MySQL database, which is working inside a 2 CPU, 4 GB RAM machine, which is having 20 GB of storage, and you don't have to pay anything extra apart from that. Okay, so when I say anything extra, it means that it does not include if in case you are doing data transfer. So million and or a billion people are trying to hit your database at the same time, the data transfer will also cost you. Okay, also if this is scaled up, if you remember this pricing right now, AWS has assumed that you are only going to keep the storage for 20 GB. The moment it increases to 200, the pricing will also increase up. If you see, okay, storage earlier was less, now it is $52. And if you remember, we have selected auto scaling on the storage. So this AWS is telling is the minimum that I will charge you, 148.32. But if in case it is being used more, if in the storage increases or the IOPS increases, in that case, the monthly cost will go up. Okay, now we will go and click on create database and let the database be created. This actually takes some time because the database will take for sure some time in creating. And this is a MySQL, or remember, this is a community edition. Now, by the way, if I have a MySQL database, it doesn't mean that this will only go and create it for this. I am very well in the position to go and create another database also, which can be even of a different type for that sake. So I can say I want to create an Oracle database. The only thing is, okay, this time easy create, Oracle and production. Have a look at the pricing. So these are the settings which are automatically created for you. And if you click on create database, this Oracle database will also be created for you. So you can go and create as many database as you want. The only thing is that Oracle database will cost you $1,356.92. So it will cost you for the instance also, it will cost you for the IOPS or the storage also. So while this database is being created, there are various ways to connect to your database. If you are a programmer, you might want to connect it via Java, via PHP, via Python, via Go, via Node.js, any language which you feel like. However, right now, because we are working from the cloud perspective or from the deployment perspective, in that case, you can choose a tool by which you can go and make a connection with database or with this particular database. So AWS recommends a software known as MySQL. So you can go and just search for MySQL Studio or MySQL Workbench. So if you go and download this MySQL Workbench, so it will automatically select the operating system for you. If in case you are working on a different operating system, you can select that particular installer. So if you are on Windows, just click here and click on download and it will install that. If you are on Ubuntu or Linux, it will get a DMG package or a dep package for you. So that's the package. If you're working on a Mac, then in that case, you can get a different version. So that's the version. Okay, so ideally, you should go to the database of your choice. So realistically speaking, you don't have to do much here, because the moment you click over there, it is automatically going to detect your operating system and you just have to click on download. However, in case if you feel that it's not the operating system, which generally is never the case, you can choose the operating system of your choice and download it. The moment if you download it, it will show up as a software, which we are going to see now. So it is something like this. Welcome to MySQL Workbench. In this case, you will have to go, and this is a software. Okay, just remember that this software doesn't do it anything. It will go and make a connection with a database. What database? This database that we have created some time back. So this particular database, it will go and make a connection with this. For that, how do we make a connection? Just click on MySQL connection, the plus button over here. It will ask you for your host name and the port number. Now, if you remember some time back, I told you that the port number generally will always be 3306. So yes, it is going to be this. Host name, I don't know as of now. Username, if you remember, we had set it as admin. Now another advice will be, try not putting admin as the username, because everyone knows that admin database or the admin user will be created for MySQL. So you can put anything, just try not putting admin. Even though if you put, there's no harm in that, that's fine. Okay, so we will go and we'll have to get the host name and the port number of the database. The username I already know. The password, it will ask me in the next step, and I can create a connection name over here. So let me call it like AWS RDS ABC company, right? Let it be. Now I need this host name. This ideally will be 127.0.0.1. The reason is that this is the local host. So if you have a MySQL database running inside your local machine, you ideally just have to go click on OK over here, and that's it. However, if you are going and hitting it on some different database, for example, RDS, for example, like this, it will tell you the IP address or the endpoint. How? You just have to click on that particular database identifier, and this is the endpoint for you. Just go and copy that endpoint and paste it over there. So endpoint generally is always ABC company, whatever the name of your database was, followed by a random ID which AWS has created because that's unique, followed by AP South one, which happens to be your region or Mumbai, followed by RDS or relational database.amazonaws.com. So if you go and put all of this and you ideally click on test connection, it will ask you for the password. The password we had set as password itself, and click on OK. Okay, so it will go and test, and if everything is good, it will say that the connection is created. So right now we only had tested the connection. Let's go and save this by clicking on OK. So next time you just have to go and double click on it, and MySQL Workbench is automatically going to make a connection with this particular database. So if you see, I have my database, which is over here, and let's have a look. So that's my SQL Workbench. Now, if I want, I can go and see that how my database is actually performing by clicking on server status over here. So this is what the efficiency of the database is. If I want to see the server, this is where my database is actually going and working. Okay, so that's the status of my database. Now, this database is making a connection with AWS. So by the way, same things which you see over here can also be seen if you go to monitoring tab over here. So that software you had downloaded, however, this thing is being shown to you by AWS using the service known as CloudWatch or the logs. So you can see it from here also, or you can see it from this particular studio also. Okay, so that's how I make a connection with my database. So we have our database over here. we have connected it with my database or with my RDS database, but then if at all I have to go and work on this in real time, what do I do? Now, we are not going to go and do very complex operations, but we'll just go and create certain tables and databases and add some data inside that database to see if it actually works or not. Okay, so for that, first thing that I have to do is I have to go and create a database. Okay, so we'll see that how you can actually do. So ideally go and follow the official documentation of MySQL. Now, one advice over here, whenever you are working on MySQL, please ensure that the version number is proper. If you remember, we had selected version 5.6. So that is why we select 5.6 over here. However, if you don't go and do that, then it can create a problem for you. Okay, so this is version 5.6. Okay, so what I'll do is, first of all, I will go and create a database by this name. So how to do, just go and run that command by clicking here. It should ideally go and create a database. Then go and use that particular database by clicking over here. Now, if this is done, you can go and create a table. To go and create a table, first of all, go and click on show tables to see that what all table exist. Right now, anyhow, I don't have any table, so it doesn't show me also. So next step, ideally, I will go and create a table by this here, and this all should be in one line. Click here and I should have the table now. Now, if I go and run the same command as show tables again over here, now I should see my table coming up actually. Okay, so I have a table named as pet, the same table which I created some time back. Okay, so if this table is there, we can go and also have a look at the table structure by clicking on describe and the table name, and it is going to tell me that this is name, owner, species, X, birth, death, all of these things. Okay, now if you want to add some data to that table, you can go and add that also by, let's run this command here. And there is some data which has gone inside my table. Also pay attention that this thing, no, whenever you see all of these things over here, it is telling you that how much time it is actually taking. So it's taking 30 milliseconds over here, 30 milliseconds. Creating table always will take more time. So that is taking 60 milliseconds over here. Show is taking that, and insert is taking 30 milliseconds. Now, if you have to go and view the data from the table, you can do a select star from pet or whatever is the table name, and you see you get the records whatever you had created. Okay, so these are the data. This is the data which is there inside your table. Now again, this thing should be as less as possible. Okay, so the lesser the value, the better your database is performing. Now, multiple ways by which you can go and increase the performance of your database. So first of all, before we go back, let's understand what we have done till now. So we had gone and created a database inside my database over here inside my RDS, where I created a MySQL database, which was of T3 medium, basically 2 CPU and 4 GB RAM. I went and created my database. Now, if my database is there, I have to go and make a connection with that database. So for that, I have option wherein I downloaded this SQL Workbench, downloaded it, installed it, and I made a connection with that. For that, I need 4 things again. First was your endpoint, second was your port, third was your username, admin, fourth was your password, whatever password you had given. If you give all of those things, you have made connection with your database, which is over here. Now, let's go back and see. I can go to my monitoring and I can see that how much storage is left, how many people are trying to connect with my database, how much my CPU is being utilized, how much free RAM do I have, how many IOPS am I actually using. So it's pretty less. How many read IOPS I am using, which is pretty less. In ideal scenarios, whenever you go and start a database, the write and read IOPS are going to be pretty high because the database is being initiated at that point of time. Okay, so that is pretty high, but eventually it goes low. Also, this should be as low as possible. It shouldn't breach the upper limit, because the more you have CPU utilization, if it starts to become 80 or 90%, you understand that in this case, your database performance has to be improved. And how to do that? For that, just click on modify over here, and you can modify the parameters of your database. Or so database, as in the server is working at some capacity. So if you need better performance, click here and say that, okay, now this 2 CPU and 4 GB RAM is almost hitting 80%. So the performance should go up. In that case, you can select this new instance type, and obviously it is exactly double the resources what you have. So the performance is going to go up 50%. You want to bring it down. Now that the load is less, you can click on this one and the performance will go down. Or basically, if the load is less, you can take a smaller instance. If it's high, you can take a higher version of instance. You can also go and change the storage. You can go and enable the auto scaling. So basically speaking, whatever things you have done till now, the same things are or can be changed by going over here. So if in case you forget the password, that the password was password or whatever it was, you forgot it, you can always go and modify the, first of all, the identifier. Second, you can go and create a new password over here. So if you go and put the new password, then old password, whatever was there, will be changed. Okay, so all of these values are configurable. Please remember that. Apart from that, if you go inside your database, you saw monitoring, you have your logs also of what is happening inside your database actually. So at this particular time, remember, this is all in UTC. The instance was created, it was restarted, it was modifying and all the things. Then it is also going and giving you a log if you are doing an upgrade, if at all an error is happening, if at all error is happening for the log. So you can go and view all the logs over here in real time. Okay, so that is how you can go and view the logs. Configurations, if you want to go and change the configuration, you can do that by going back to my database, selecting there and clicking on modify. Or else if you just want to see that, okay, I don't know what version of the database it is, you can go and check here also, or the option group itself is going to tell you. Also, if you have connected to your database, it's pretty straightforward to understand the database version. So you can do it from there also. Now, if you want to go and change the maintenance and the backup window, you can do that. If you want to take a backup, you can do that. You want to take a snapshot or a backup of your database at that very moment, you can click on take snapshot. You can give it a name like, let's say, backup, or whatever is the database name, let's say backup, and right now 08042021 and the time 200900. And click on take a snapshot. In this case, the backup of this database is being created at this very moment, which will appear inside your snapshot over here. So that's the backup over here. Okay, now if you want, you can also go and export. So in that case, if you have at all done an export, it will show up over here. Now whatever backups are there will all show. If someone has shared it with you, that can be done. If it's a public backup, it is over here. Now public backups are the backups which people have created as the public backup. Basically, it's available for anyone to use. Ideally, avoid using this because you don't know that what actually is there inside that particular database. But in unlikely scenario, if you want to use it, yes, you can very well go and take that, click over there, click on your actions and click on restore snapshot. So basically whatever data was there, so let's say that for some reason my database failed, my instances got corrupted, my data is lost at this very moment. So what do? The answer is just go to your snapshots, select your snapshot, click on action and click on restore the snapshot. Right now, because it is being created over here, it's creating, that is why you don't have the option to restore snapshot. But when it is created, in that case, you can go to action, click on restore snapshot, and this particular data at this time, so at 2:33:55 p.m. UTC, whatever data was there, the complete thing will be restored. So let's go back to the database here and fine, maintenance and backup like we have already seen. Apart from this, you can also go and put the tags if you want. You can put a name over here. So let's say name was something as ABC company, and let's say created at and the day today. And you can add another tag like, let's say backup 1 on, and the backup was taken at 08-April-2021 at 202100 hours and click on it. So these all backups are created. Now, if you want, you can also go and modify the tags. Now, these tags are for you to understand that what this database actually is doing. So this is how you work on your RDS. And like we created it for our MySQL database, you can go and create it for any other database. If in case you want to delete it, you can click here, click on delete. It's going to error out. And the reason is, if you remember, in the beginning, we had gone and enabled the deletion protection or the termination protection. Simply put, no one can go and delete my database until that protection is disabled. So this is how you secure. So no one at this point of time can go and delete your database. If in case you need to delete your database, click on modify and go to the very end. There you will see the termination protection or the deletion protection would be enabled. You will have to go and disable that, and then you can go and delete your database. So what I mean is this: you have your deletion protection over here. So you can go uncheck that option and save it, after which you can go and delete or terminate your database. So let's do that. Let's remove it and then we will delete our database. Now, this ideally should not be done because you never want to delete your database, but if in case you want, yes. Click on continue. At this step, it is going to ask you that when do you want this particular change to actually happen. If you remember, we had something as the window, the backup window, the maintenance window. So it says that you see your scheduled maintenance is supposed to happen on April 9th at 15:03 and 15:33 hours. So half an hour window starting at 5 p.m. in the evening, it's going to happen. I can apply the changes then. If you say that, no, I want to apply it immediately, you can do that also. And you can click on modify DB. Now, if that is done, now you can very well go and delete your database. Now it will ask you that whether you want to create the final snapshot. So if in case you are deleting it, still a backup is created for you. Also remember, the snapshots are very cheap actually. So even in case if you are deleting your database, you might want to still keep the snapshot with you, just in case if you want to revert back. So you should ideally take the final snapshot always. If you want, you can retain the automated backups, in which case whatever backups were there will all be retained. If in case you are not doing that, you will have to acknowledge this, wherein you say that I understand that the backups are not stored. No one is keeping my database and I myself am responsible for the loss of the data that happens. Then you have to go and type this delete me, and AWS again is warning you that ideally you should go and click on create final snapshot, which is good. If you don't want, that's fine. Just click on I acknowledge and click on delete me, and finally click on delete. And now your database has started to be deleted. Remember, that takes some time. It won't be available or deleted immediately. Now that also doesn't mean that you can still make a connection. The connections will be terminated immediately. However, it's going to take some time for the database to be deleted, and then it won't show up over here. Now, if you had the backups, anyhow, it will be available inside your snapshot. So this backup is still there with me. If in case I want to revert back, I can restore it. Now, this is not available as of now, because after this database which is created, I can go and restore it. So that's how I work on MySQL inside my RDS. In short, that's how I work on any database inside my RDS.